friends, I'm starting to think that we should invite Zimbabwean election observers to oversee the 2024 elections to make sure that they're free and fair, because the alternative is just far, far worse.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the news that apparently the Electoral Commission has partnered with a fact-checker organization called Real 411. Basically, they are online fact-checkers who you can go to, be proper Karens with, complain about misinformation, and they will determine whether or not said allegation is or is not misinformation. If it is deemed misinformation, they'll write up a really snotty email, which they will then circulate, denouncing your utterances. For those of you who want to see what this looks like in reality, we would point you to the misinformation warning that they put out against our good friend, germ warfare, Jeremy Nell.
And in this particular complaint about Jeremy Nell, Real 411 physically says germ should be removed from society. That was their finding on a cartoonist. This is the official fact checker of the 2024 election, but they have the power to refer any misinformation to the electoral court. So people can actually go to jail for saying the wrong thing about the election in 2024. It's mind-boggling that we have Western-backed NGOs dictating to us how free and fair an election is. Where's our sovereignty?
I would remind you that we live in the post-2020 world. And so you may recall within the last 3 years, we have been subjected to numerous levels of misinformation, such as social distancing is based on scientific fact. All of the current research shows it was an arbitrary figure determined by politicians based on thumb-sucking. Wearing a mask was safe and effective for everybody and would stop the transmission of the virus of unknown specification, because we're still not allowed to refer to the virus, lest we forget that it is now shown that masks do absolutely fuck all. Lest we also forget that the anti-vaxxers who didn't want to take the vax would suddenly stop people from being able to get immunity to the virus of unknown specification, even though we now know that the vax basically does fuck all. It doesn't stop transmission, doesn't mean you get any less or any better, doesn't mean you have greater immunity to it. It just means you feel nice, right? Because you got a vax. But the complications on the side effects are still yet not really talked about. Every single one of these 3 points that I've just referenced that are now deemed to be common knowledge and get talked about quite a bit were 3 years ago enough to get you deplatformed. They were all classed misinformation. And if we forget, some of the left denounced people who raised these questions and said they were not fit for society and they should be locked down in their homes indefinitely. This is what fact-checking is.
I'm very glad you mentioned those 3 particular examples, because if you go to the Real 411 and look at the complaints, hey presto, every single thing you mentioned deemed to be disinformation. The efficacy of masks, it's wrong to say they didn't work. The fact that the vaccine doesn't transmit the virus, that was disinformation as well. Right now, on Real 411, the people that are going to be fact-checking the elections still believe the vaccine worked, still believe masks works, and still believe social distance worked. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, bring the Zimbabwean election observers. They are going to be far more competent to deal with the election than anything to do with these Western-funded NGOs run by horrifically lefty whiteys who really have no merit or any place in South African society. And all they're doing is making sure that Western influence is still found in South Africa, especially around the election. Because once you control the election, well, you control the country, of course.
Yes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you may say, well, why are you calling this Western-funded NGOs? Well, actually, this is a very easy one to explain. If you go onto the Real 411's website, go to the bottom of the page, you will see who its partners and its funders are. Oh, it's the Wraith Foundation, funded by George Soros. So if you look, this is a typical left-wing captured organization that specializes in what we would class as leftist propaganda. But I suppose we would be classed as giving misinformation for saying that. This board can make a recommendation that Rahman and I, for questioning any form of electoral integrity, could be sent to prison as political prisoners of the system for daring to question the most safe and fair and free, most democratic election of all time, because they told us so.
Yeah, because they told us so. So, Byron, I mean, really, the ANC must get a grip. The government of South Africa must get a grip. The opposition politicians of South Africa must get a grip as well, because combined with this Western-funded NGO called Media Monitoring Africa, Facebook and TikTok are both going to partake in this. Facebook, which is basically American spyware, and TikTok, which is basically Chinese spyware, they are also going to make sure that there are fact checkers available to the IEC during the course of this election. And you know what? The irony of all of this is they will never, ever, ever fact check the claims made by politicians. What's the point of an election? To lie to the public so people vote for you. Do you think they're going to fact check those guys? Absolutely not. Will they fact check us for saying that, I don't know, Cyril Ramaphosa is funded by Western funded NGOs? Absolutely. You can see the double standard already.
What type of fact-checking could they do that would show that there is misinformation with political parties? How about the one that the majority of land in South Africa is owned by white people? Well, actually, ladies and gentlemen, the truth is the majority of the land in South Africa is owned by the state. White people do own predominantly more land than black people. That is not a percentage of South Africa. That just means that white families generally tend to buy land and black families don't. That is a statistical fact. So when Malema stands up and says, this land is owned by white people, will that be fact-checked? Somehow I think not.
Absolutely. I can imagine another fact check will be the NHI will bring, medical utopia to South Africa, and everyone, rich and poor, will have the best medical service possible in the world. We know that that is a lie, but the ANC will use it in their campaigning. I somehow doubt Cyril Ramaphosa is going to go to jail for misinformation. Western-funded NGOs are determining the veracity of statements made during an election in Africa. The ANC should get some balls and tell them to footsack. These people don't belong here. If they want election observers, bring in the Somalians, bring in the Zimbabweans, bring in the Angolans, bring in the Ethiopians. I don't care. They are far more competent than these people. These people are here to infiltrate and change South Africa for the benefit of their masters, not for the benefit of the South African population.
As I was very kindly reminded very recently, Africa has nothing to do with democracy. It's an auction. All you need is enough money to buy your way through anything. And at the moment, the Western forces have far more money than we do. Therefore, if they want to buy us and test their stupid dumbass rules, hey, why not? What are you going to do about it? Vote DA? That's not going to change anyway.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you more. So fundamentally, ladies and gentlemen, this is a huge problem. If we go to jail, please send us some water, maybe some brown bread if you got some, because Morning Shot is not going to change what we are going to say, and Morning Shot is going to tell the truth as best as we can.
We look forward to the election results in 2024, which will be the most fair and free election of all time, and will probably have the most number of votes ever cast for an election leader ever. We know how the script goes, ladies and gentlemen, so strap in.